The void between stars held its breath. Commander Zethkar of the Hegemony Battle Fleet pressed his scaled fingers against the observation deck's reinforced glass, watching the emptiness that had once been the Terran system, where Sol should have blazed with nuclear fire. Only darkness remained. Where 8 planets should have danced their eternal waltz, nothing moved. Status report. Zethkar's voice carried the weight of authority that had conquered 17 star systems. Sir, our deep space sensors detect no movement, no energy signatures, no transmissions. Navigation Officer Yilmtar's four eyes blinked in sequence, a nervous habit from his homeworld. The entire system appears dead. Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what humans might have recognized as laughter, though no human had ever heard the sound and lived to describe it. Excellent. The humans have finally learned their place in the galaxy's hierarchy. 3 months ago, the hegemony had issued humanity its final ultimatum: surrender unconditionally or face complete annihilation. The humans had responded with characteristic stubbornness, broadcasting a single message across all frequencies: we refuse. Now, it seemed, reality had taught them the futility of defying the galaxy. As dominant power, take us in, Zethkar commanded. Full battle formation. I want to see what remains of their pitiful civilization. The hegemony fleet moved like a school of metallic predators through the cosmic dark. 300 ships, each one a testament to the technological superiority that had brought 47 species to their knees. Their hulls gleamed with the polished perfection of absolute confidence. As they approached the orbit of what had once been Mars, Tactical Officer Krendis straightened at his console. Commander, I'm detecting something. Elaborate. Zethkar's tone sharpened. Sir, there's a massive energy signature directly ahead. It's enormous. The main screen flickered to life, and the bridge fell silent. There, hanging in the void like a metallic mountain, was a ship unlike anything in the hegemony's extensive military databases. It stretched nearly 30 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull a seamless blend of angles and curves that seemed to bend light around its edges. No running lights betrayed its position. No energy signatures leaked from its systems. It simply existed, as silent and immovable as a planet by the void. Whispered Communications Officer Velinara. What is that thing? Zethkar's confidence wavered for the first time in his military career. Analysis. Now, the bridge crew worked frantically, their instruments struggling to make sense of what they were seeing. The ship's composition defied classification. Its energy output registered as 0. Yet something that massive should have been radiating heat, electromagnetic fields, gravitational distortions. Sir, Krendis reported, his voice tight with concern, the ship appears to be inactive. No life signs, no power readings, no movement. A derelict. Zethkar's mandibles clicked again, but this time with relief. The humans abandoned their system and left this monument to their failure. Commander, Yilmtar called out. We're receiving a transmission. From where? From everywhere, sir. It's broadcasting on all frequencies simultaneously. The voice that filled the bridge was distinctly human, calm and measured, carrying an accent that linguistic analysis would later identify as originating from the North American continent of Earth. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force, aboard the TDF Defiance. You are entering human space without authorization. You will withdraw immediately or face the consequences. Zethkar's laughter echoed through the bridge. Reply on all frequencies. Tell this Admiral Chen that the hegemony does not negotiate with inferior species. Tell her that her system is already ours. The response came immediately, as if the human had anticipated his words. Commander Zethkar of the Hegemony Battle Fleet, you have been given your only warning. The Sol system is under the protection of humanity's Titan-class warships. You have 10 minutes to begin your withdrawal. The bridge erupted in shocked murmurs. How had the human known his name? How had they identified his flagship among 300 identical vessels? Sir, Velinara reported. They're broadcasting our complete fleet composition, including classified ship designations and crew manifests. Zethkar's confidence cracked. Like ice in a spring thaw. Impossible. That information is encrypted with quantum locks. Commander, Krendis' voice carried a note of panic. The derelict ship, it's not a derelict. On the main screen, the massive vessel began to change. Sections of its hull that had appeared solid started to shift and separate, revealing that what they had taken for a single ship was actually a complex structure of interconnected components. Gun ports opened like 1,000 eyes awakening from sleep. Shield generators hummed to life, creating a barely visible distortion around the ship's hull. But it was the lights that truly stole their breath away. Starting from the bow and racing toward the stern, illumination cascaded across the ship's hull in waves of brilliant white. As the lights reached each section, massive letters became visible, etched into the metal itself. TDFDEFINCE. By the void, Zethkar whispered. It's the size of a moon, sir. Yilmtar reported, his voice barely audible. Sensors are detecting weapons systems across the entire hull. Thousands of them. And the power output, it's climbing exponentially. Admiral Chen's voice returned, now carrying an edge of steel. Commander Zethkar, you have 8 minutes remaining. I suggest you use them wisely. Zethkar's training kicked in. All ships, assume attack formation. Prepare for. His words were cut short as every screen on the bridge flickered and went dark. When they returned, they showed not the familiar readouts of their own systems, but the bridge of the human vessel. A woman sat in the command chair, her gray hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, her uniform bearing insignia that spoke of countless battles. Her eyes held the cold fire of someone who had seen too much war and was tired of it. Hello, Commander, Admiral Chen said, looking directly at him through the screen. I thought it was time we met face to face. How are you doing this? Zethkar demanded. Our systems are isolated, quantum encrypted. Your systems are children's toys compared to what we've built in the past decade. Chen interrupted. Did you really think we'd spend 50 years exploring the galaxy without learning a few things? The bridge crew stared in horrified fascination as the human continued. You see, Commander, you made a critical error in your intelligence gathering. You assume that because we're young, we're weak. Because we're new to space, we're primitive. Because we haven't conquered anyone, we can't fight. On the screen, Admiral Chen stood and walked to her own observation window, looking out at the hegemony fleet with the casual interest of someone watching clouds drift by. What you fail to understand is that humans have been fighting each other for 10,000 years. We've perfected the art of war in ways your species never imagined. And when we finally turned that expertise outward, toward the stars, she paused, her smile sharp as a blade. Well, we build ships like this one. You're bluffing, Zethkar snarled. One ship against 300, even with your size advantage. The mathematics are impossible. Are they? Chen turned back to face him. Computer. Display fleet composition. The screen shifted to show a tactical display of the local space, with the hegemony fleet represented by red dots arranged in their attack formation. But surrounding them, previously invisible to their sensors, were dozens of other contacts, blue dots, each one representing a ship nearly as large as the Defiance. The Titan-class program has been in development for the past 20 years. Chen explained conversationally. We've built 47 of them, one for each species the hegemony has conquered. Each ship is named after a concept that humanity holds sacred: defiance, liberty, courage, hope, determination. She gestured to the tactical display. Right now, you're surrounded by 12 of them. The others are positioned throughout human space, defending our colonies, our trade routes, our exploration fleets. Zethkar's legs felt weak. Impossible. We would have detected construction on this scale. Would you? Tell me, Commander, how many humans have you actually met? The question caught him off guard. None. The hegemony doesn't engage in diplomatic contact with inferior species. Then how do you know we're inferior? The simple question hung in the air like a physical weight. Zethkar realized he had no answer. His species' entire interaction with humanity had been limited to intercepted transmissions and long-range observations. They had never actually tested human capabilities in combat. You have 3 minutes remaining. Chen continued. I suggest you use them to contact your superiors. Tell them that humanity is claiming its place among the stars. Tell them that we're not interested in conquest or domination. But tell them this, Commander, we will not be conquered. The transmission cut out, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Sir, Krendis reported, his voice shaking. The human ships are powering up weapons systems. The energy readings they're off the scale. Zethkar looked at the tactical display, at the 300 ships of his fleet surrounded by Titans that could swat them from the sky like insects. He thought of his crew, of the billions of hegemony citizens who believed in their military's invincibility. And he thought of the quiet confidence in Admiral Chen's voice when she spoke of humanity's place among the stars. Open a channel to the Hegemony Command. He said quietly, Priority Alpha. This is Commander Zethkar reporting a tactical development. In the Terran system, on the screen, the human ship Defiance continued its patient vigil. Its weapons trained on the Hegemony fleet, but not firing. Not yet. The silence between stars had ended. Now came the sound of everything changing. Chapter 2. The weight of World Hegemony Command Center on the capital world of Vorthik had never experienced silence like this. Supreme Commander Thalrek stared at the holographic display showing the Terran system, his 6 arms drumming against the command podium in a rhythm that had intimidated subordinates. For 3 decades, the display showed 12 massive human vessels surrounding the Hegemony fleet like predators circling wounded prey. Confirm the transmission, he ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. Confirm, Supreme Commander, reported Intelligence Director Zenithara, her bioluminescent patches flickering with stress patterns. These readings are consistent across all 300 ships in the fleet. The human vessels are unprecedented. Thalrek's mandibles clicked in frustration. Impossible. Our intelligence networks monitor all major construction projects within 1,000 light-years. Nothing of this magnitude could be built without our knowledge, sir. Communications Officer Ralmek interjected. We're receiving another transmission from the human fleet. It's addressing us directly. The holographic display shifted, showing the interior of the human ship. Admiral Chen sat in her command chair, but now she was flanked by other figures. A tall man with dark skin and calculating eyes wore the insignia of a senior military engineer. A woman with silver hair and the bearing of a diplomat stood beside him, and behind them, partially visible in the shadows, were others whose faces spoke of different worlds, different origins. Supreme Commander Thalrek, Admiral Chen began, her voice carrying clearly across the light years. I believe it's time we had a conversation. The command center erupted in shocked murmurs. How had the humans identified their highest military leader? How were they transmitting directly to the capital world? I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force, she continued. And these are my colleagues, Admiral Marcus Thompson, our chief military architect, Ambassador Elena Vasquez, our senior diplomatic representative, and several others who represent humanity's interests. She gestured to the display behind her, which showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. We've been monitoring your communications for the past 18 months. We know about your war plans, your conquest schedules, your resource allocation strategies. We know about the 47 species you've subjugated, the 12 worlds you've strip-mined, the countless lives you've considered expendable. Thalrek has 6 arms clenched into fists. You dare spy on the hegemony. We dare many things. Supreme Commander, we dare to explore the galaxy without asking permission. We dare to trade with species you've never bothered to contact. We dare to build ships that can defend our interests. Chen's smile was sharp as a plasma blade. And we dare to tell you that the age of hegemony expansion is over. You're bluffing. Thalrek roared. 47 ships cannot stand against the might of the hegemony. We have 10,000 vessels, 1,000,000 warriors, the resources of 100 worlds. Do you? Admiral Thompson stepped forward, his voice carrying the precision of an engineer who had calculated every variable. Let me show you something interesting. The display shifted to show a tactical map of hegemony space, but instead of showing their own fleet positions, it showed something else entirely. the locations of human ships throughout the galaxy. These are our exploration vessels, Thompson explained. For the past 50 years, we've been mapping the galaxy, establishing trade, relationships, learning about the species the hegemony has conquered. Did you know that most of them would be happy to see you gone? The map changed, showing communication networks, trade routes, and what appeared to be military installations on worlds throughout hegemony space. We've been building relationships while you've been building weapons, Thompson continued. We've been learning while you've been conquering, and we've been preparing while you've been celebrating your victories. Ambassador Vasquez moved forward, her diplomatic bearing evident even across the vast distance. Supreme Commander, humanity doesn't seek war. We seek coexistence. But we've learned from history that peace must sometimes be defended with strength. The hegemony has ruled this galaxy for 800 years, Thalrek snarled. We will not be dictated to by an upstart species that hasn't even learned to properly navigate hyperspace, haven't we? Chen's smile widened. Computer, display the Titan-class specifications. The screen filled with technical readouts that made the hegemony's most advanced scientists struggle to understand. Faster-than-light drives that operated on principles they had never encountered. Weapon systems that drew power from artificial singularities. Defensive shields that seemed to bend the laws of physics. These ships represent the combined knowledge of every species we've encountered, Chen explained. The Zenthari taught us about energy manipulation. The Korthik showed us new principles of spacetime engineering. The Villanari shared their understanding of quantum mechanics. Even some of your own conquered species have contributed to our knowledge. Impossible, Thalrek whispered. Our conquered species are isolated, monitored, controlled. Are they? Thompson's voice carried a note of grim satisfaction. Tell me, Supreme Commander, when was the last time you actually visited one of your conquered worlds? When did you last speak with their leaders, their scientists, their engineers? The question struck home. The hegemony ruled through fear and isolation, keeping conquered species separated and dependent. They had never bothered to learn from them. The truth is, Chen continued, you've been conquering the galaxy while we've been learning from it. You've been building an empire while we've been building a network. You've been making enemies while we've been making allies. The display shifted again, showing something that made Thalrek's blood run cold. It was a map of the galaxy showing not just human ships, but vessels from dozens of other species, all working together, all connected by communication networks that bypass hegemony monitoring entirely. This is the true balance of power in the galaxy, Chen said softly. Not the hegemony's military might, but the combined strength of every species that wants to live free. You're organizing a rebellion, Thalrek accused. We're organizing a future. Ambassador Vasquez replied, a future where species can trade freely, explore safely, and develop their own destinies without fear of conquest. And if we refuse to accept this future, the three humans exchanged glances. It was Admiral Thompson who answered. Then you'll face the consequences of 300 years of suppressed innovation. Supreme Commander, every species you've conquered has been dreaming of freedom, planning for it, preparing for it. We've simply given them the tools to make it reality. The transmission cut out, leaving the hegemony command center in stunned silence. Sir, Intelligence Director Zenithara reported, her voice barely above a whisper. We're receiving reports from across the Empire. Uprisings on 7 worlds, fleet movements in the Outer Rim, and sir, we're detecting human ships in systems we thought were uninhabited. Thalrek stared at the tactical display, watching as red dots representing hegemony. Forces were gradually surrounded by blue dots representing the human coalition. For the first time in his military career, he faced an enemy that had outmaneuvered him before the battle had even begun. Options. He commanded, sir, we could withdraw the fleet from the Terran system and consolidate our forces, suggested strategic planning officer Keelran. We could attempt to negotiate, offered Zenthara, or we could attack, rumbled General Vorthash, his scarred Karapachi bearing the marks of 100 battles. Hit them hard and fast before they can coordinate their response. Thalrek considered each option. Withdrawal meant admitting defeat. Negotiation meant accepting that the hegemony was no longer the galaxy's dominant power. But, attack, what are the projections for a full assault? He asked Strategic Planning Officer Keelran as patches flickered rapidly as he consulted his data. Sir, based on the energy readings from the human ships, a direct assault would result in catastrophic losses. Their weapons systems appear to be at least 50 years ahead of our own technology. How catastrophic, sir? Our models suggest a 97% casualty rate among attacking forces. The command center fell silent. In 800 years of conquest, the hegemony had never faced odds like these, sir, Communications Officer Ralmek reported. We're receiving a priority transmission from Commander Zethkar in the Terran system. Put it through. Zethkar's image appeared on the display. His usually composed demeanor cracked with stress. Supreme Commander, the human Admiral Chen is requesting a direct communication with you. She says it's regarding the terms of coexistence. Terms of coexistence. Thalrek's voice carried dangerous undertones. Sir, she's made it clear that humanity isn't seeking the destruction of the hegemony. They're offering an alternative. Thalrek stared at the display, his 6 arms clenching and unclenching. As he weighed his options, the galaxy's balance of power had shifted in the span of a single day. Everything he had believed about hegemony's superiority had been proven wrong. But perhaps, in this moment of crisis, there was also opportunity. Put Admiral Chen through, he commanded. Let's hear what the humans have to say. The display shifted. Once more, showing the interior of the human ship, Admiral Chen sat in her command chair. But now her expression was different. Gone was the sharp smile of someone holding all the cards. Instead, she wore the serious expression of someone who understood the weight of what came next. Supreme Commander Thalrek, she began. I believe it's time we discuss the future of the galaxy. And in the silence that followed, the sound of everything changing grew louder. Chapter 3. The Mathematics of Peace Negotiation Chamber aboard the TDF Defiance was a marvel of human engineering and diplomatic foresight. The room expanded and contracted based on the needs of its occupants, with gravitational fields adjusted to accommodate different species' physiological requirements. Atmospheric processors maintained separate breathing zones, while universal translators ensured that every word, every nuance, every cultural subtlety was perfectly understood by all parties. Supreme Commander Thalrek materialized in the center of the chamber via quantum transport, his 6 arms held in a position that, among his species, indicated cautious respect. He was flanked by Intelligence Director Zenithara and General Vorthash, both of whom looked as if they expected the humans to spring some elaborate trap. Across from them sat the human delegation, Admiral Chen, Admiral Thompson, Ambassador Vasquez, and 3 others whose presence spoke of humanity's careful preparation for this moment. A linguist who had spent 20 years studying hegemony languages, a xenobiologist who understood the cultural nuances of 47 different species, and a young woman whose insignia marked her as a specialist in something called transition management. Supreme Commander, Admiral Chen began, rising from her chair in a gesture of respect that surprised the hegemony delegation. Thank you for accepting our invitation. I know this cannot be easy for you. Thalrek's mandibles clicked in what might have been acknowledgement. You have demonstrated capabilities that challenge everything we believed about galactic power. Structures. I am curious about your intentions. Our intentions are simple, Ambassador Vasquez replied, her voice carrying the trained neutrality of someone who had spent years mediating between species. We want to establish a framework for coexistence that respects the sovereignty of all species while preventing the kind of destructive expansion that has characterized the past 800 years. You speak of coexistence, General Vorthash rumbled, his scarred carapace reflecting the chamber's soft lighting. But your ships surround our fleets. Your words speak of peace, but your actions speak of conquest. Admiral Thompson leaned forward, his engineer's mind choosing words with precision. General, if we wanted conquest, this conversation would be unnecessary. Our ships could have attacked your fleet in the Terran system. Instead, We chose to demonstrate our capabilities and invite discussion. Why? Thalric asked bluntly. Why show mercy to those who came to destroy you? The question hung in the air like a physical weight. Admiral Chen exchanged glances with her colleagues before answering. Because, Supreme Commander, we've learned something from our own history. Conquest breeds resentment. Oppression creates resistance. And empires built on force eventually collapse under their own weight. She gestured to the viewport. Where the stars gleamed like scattered diamonds, we've seen what happens when species try to rule the galaxy through fear. We want to try something different. Different how? Intelligence Director Zenithara's bioluminescent patches flickered with skepticism. The young woman with the transition management insignia spoke for the first time. We propose a galactic confederation based on voluntary membership, mutual benefit, and shared defense. Each species maintains its sovereignty while contributing to common goals, exploration, trade, scientific advancement, and protection against external threats. In the hegemony's current territories, Thalric asked, would be returned to their original inhabitants? Ambassador Vasquez replied calmly, with assistance from the Confederation, to ensure peaceful transitions and economic stability, General. Vorthash's laughter was like grinding stone. You expect us to simply give up 800 years of expansion? To abandon the empire that has brought order to the galaxy? Has it brought order? Admiral Thompson asked quietly. Or has it simply suppressed the natural development of 47 species? How many scientific breakthroughs have been lost because conquered species weren't allowed to pursue their own research? How many cultural achievements have been erased because you required conformity to hegemony standards? He activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy not as a political map, but as a network of potential connections. Look at what we've accomplished in just 50 years by working with other species instead of conquering them. Joint research projects that have advanced our understanding of physics, biology, and engineering. Trade relationships that have enriched every participant. Cultural exchanges that have expanded our perspectives on existence itself. The display shifted to show specific examples, a joint human Zenthri research station that had developed new forms of clean energy, a collaborative effort between human and Velinari scientists that had led to breakthrough medical treatments, a cultural exchange program that had produced art and literature that neither species could have created alone. This is what becomes possible when species work together instead of trying to dominate each other. Thompson continued, imagine what we could accomplish if every species in the galaxy was free to contribute their unique perspectives and abilities. Thalric studied the display with growing interest. Despite his military training, he had always been curious about the technical aspects of galactic civilization. The achievements shown here were impressive, but they also raised questions about the hegemony's own approach to expansion. You assume that conquered species have unique contributions to make, he said carefully. But our experience has been that most species require guidance to achieve their full potential. Do they? The xenobiologist spoke up, her voice carrying the passion of someone who had spent years studying different forms of life. Or do they require freedom? Take the Korthuk, for example. Under hegemony rule, they've been limited to basic manufacturing and resource extraction. But when we established trade relationships with their underground resistance movement, we discovered that they had developed theoretical physics concepts that were centuries ahead of anything we'd seen. She activated her own display, showing mathematical equations that made even the human delegation look impressed. These are Korthik theories about space-time manipulation. They've been working on them in secret for 300 years, afraid to share them with the hegemony because they feared it would only lead to more effective conquest tools. Impossible, Zenithara breathed. The Korthik are simple miners. They have no advanced scientific capabilities. Because you never gave them the chance to develop them, Admiral Chen replied. You decided what they were capable of based on your first contact with them, and then you enforced that limitation for 8 centuries. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. How many other species had hidden capabilities that the hegemony had never discovered? How much potential had been wasted in the name of maintaining order, even if what you say is true? Thalrek said slowly, the hegemony has responsibilities to its own people. We have billions of citizens who depend on the resources and stability that our expansion has provided, and they would continue to have those benefits under the Confederation system, Ambassador Vasquez assured him. But they would be based on voluntary trade and mutual benefit rather than conquest. In extraction, you speak of voluntary trade. General Vorthash objected. But what guarantee do we have that other species will be willing to trade with us? Our history makes us unpopular. The transition management specialist smiled. That's actually one of our main concerns, General. We've developed a comprehensive plan for helping the hegemony transition from a conquest-based empire to a voluntary confederation member. It includes economic incentives, cultural exchange programs, and gradual integration processes that will help other species see the hegemony as a partner. Rather than a threat, she activated her own display, showing a complex timeline of proposed changes. The transition would take place over 50 years, with careful monitoring and adjustment at each stage. Former hegemony territories would gain independence gradually, with Confederation support to ensure economic stability. The hegemony would maintain its core worlds while developing new economic and cultural relationships, based on equality rather than domination. And if we refuse, Thalrek asked. The question brought the chamber's temperature down several degrees. Admiral Chen's expression grew serious. Then you'll face the consequences of 300 years of suppressed innovation and justified rebellion, she replied. The galaxy has changed, Supreme Commander. The balance of power has shifted. The choice isn't between maintaining the status quo and accepting our proposal. The choice is between managed change and chaotic collapse. She gestured to the viewport again, where the stars seemed to pulse with hidden energy. Right now, there are uprisings on 17 hegemony worlds, resistance movements on 34 others, and a growing coalition of species that are tired of living under hegemony rule. We're offering you a chance to be part of the solution instead of the problem. You're asking us to abandon everything we've built, Thalrek said quietly. We're asking you to build something better, Admiral Thompson replied. Something that includes everyone instead of just the hegemony. Something that grows through cooperation instead of conquest. Something that will last not because it's enforced by fear, but because it's supported by hope. The chamber fell silent again as the hegemony delegation considered the proposal. After 800 years of expansion and conquest, the idea of voluntary cooperation seemed almost incomprehensible. I need time to consider this, Thalrek finally said, and I need to consult with the Hegemony Council. Of course. Admiral Chen nodded. But while you're considering, please remember that time is not unlimited. The forces of change are already in motion. The question is whether the hegemony will help guide that change, or be swept away by it, as the hegemony delegation prepared to leave. Intelligence Director Zenithara asked one final question. Why us? Why offer this opportunity to the species that has oppressed so many others? Ambassador Vasquez answered with the wisdom of someone who had spent years studying galactic history. Because, Director, we've learned that lasting peace requires the participation of all parties. You can't build a stable future by excluding those who are part of the problem. You can only build it by helping them become part of the solution. As the hegemony delegation departed, the chamber fell quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's systems. The human delegation remained seated, each lost in their own thoughts about what had just transpired. Think they'll accept? Admiral Thompson asked. They'll have to, Admiral Chen replied, staring out at the stars. The alternative is too costly for everyone involved. But even as she spoke, she knew that the next few days would determine not just the fate of the hegemony, but the future of the entire galaxy. The mathematics of peace, it turned out, were far more complex than the equations of war. Chapter 4. The sound of everything changing. The Hegemony Council chamber had witnessed the rise and fall of civilizations, the planning of conquests that spanned centuries, and the distribution of resources from 100 worlds. But it had never hosted a debate about the voluntary dissolution of an 800-year-old empire. Supreme Commander Thalrek stood at the center of the circular chamber, surrounded by the 12 members of the Hegemony High Council. Each councilor represented a different aspect of their civilization: military, economic, scientific, cultural, and industrial. Together, they had guided the expansion that had brought 47 species under hegemony control. "The proposal is madness," declared Economic Councillor Velthurin, her crystalline body refracting the chamber's lights in patterns that indicated severe agitation. "We would be abandoning the most successful economic model in galactic history for an untested system based on the naive idealism of a species that has existed in space. For barely 50 years, the humans have demonstrated capabilities that render our military advantages obsolete." Military Councillor Korthalin countered, his battle-scarred Karapachi bearing testimony to 3 centuries of warfare. "Our fleets cannot stand against their Titan-class ships. Our weapons cannot penetrate their defenses. Our tactics cannot counter their technological superiority, but their numbers are limited." Industrial Councillor Zomerik pointed out, 47 ships, no matter how advanced, cannot patrol an entire galaxy. If we were to coordinate simultaneous actions across multiple systems, they're not alone. Thalrek interrupted, his 6 arms gesturing to the holographic display that showed the galaxy's current political situation. "Intelligence reports indicate that at least 23 of our subject species have made contact with the Human Confederation. They're not just facing 47 ships. They're facing a coordinated resistance movement that spans the entire galaxy." Scientific Councillor Lirandel, her tentacles writhing with nervous energy, accessed the data streams from the negotiation. The technological demonstrations were unprecedented. Their understanding of physics appears to be centuries ahead of our own. If they've achieved these advances through cooperation with other species, then our policy of technological suppression may have been counterproductive. Counterproductive? Cultural Councillor YSSVE or AS Serpentine form coil with indignation. "Our policies have maintained order for 8 centuries. We have prevented the chaos that would result from uncontrolled technological development. Have we?" Thalrek asked quietly, "or have we simply delayed it while making it more severe?" The question hung in the air like a physical weight round the chamber. The councillors exchanged glances, their various forms of body language indicating a level of uncertainty that none of them had experienced in decades. "Sir," Communications Councillor Rawless reported, "we're receiving priority transmissions from 17 systems. The uprisings are spreading." "Details," Thalrek commanded. "The Korthic resistance has seized control of 3 mining worlds. The Zenthri have declared independence from the hegemony and are requesting Confederation membership. The Villanari have activated what they're calling a Freedom Fleet and are moving toward the Outer Rim territories." "How many ships?" Military Councillor Korthalin demanded. "Sir, the Villanari fleet consists of 200 vessels of unknown configuration. They appear to be using technology that we don't recognize." The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. The Villanari were supposed to be a peaceful species, limited to basic space travel and agricultural production. The idea that they had secretly developed a fleet was almost incomprehensible. How's this possible? Economic Councillor Velthurin's crystalline form flickered with patterns of confusion. "We monitor all industrial activity in hegemony space. We control all advanced technology. We regulate all materials that could be used for military purposes." "Apparently not as well as we believe," Thalrek replied grimly. Intelligence Director Xenothara, report. Xenothara bioluminescent patches flickered in patterns that indicated deep concern. "Supreme Commander, our analysis of the human data suggests that we've been operating under several false assumptions. We believe that our subject species lacked the capability for advanced technological development. We assumed that our monitoring systems were comprehensive. We thought that our isolation protocols prevented coordination between different species." She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy from a new perspective. Instead of the familiar map of hegemony territories, it showed a complex network of connections between worlds, species, and hidden installations. "The truth is that we've been observing the surface of these civilizations, while they've been developing their true capabilities in secret. Underground research facilities, hidden communication networks, distributed manufacturing systems that use materials and methods we never thought to monitor. The humans didn't create this network. She continued. They simply provided the catalyst that allowed it to reveal itself. For centuries, our subject species have been preparing for this moment. They've been waiting for someone with the strength to stand up to the hegemony. The implications were staggering. The hegemony had built their empire on the assumption that conquered species would remain conquered. The idea that they had been secretly preparing for rebellion, while maintaining the appearance of compliance, challenged everything they believed about their own effectiveness. Recommendations? Thalrek asked. Sir, we have 3 options. Military Councillor Corthalin reported. Full military response, strategic withdrawal, or acceptance of the human proposal. Analysis of each option. Full military response would require mobilizing every ship in the hegemony fleet. Our projections indicate a 73% chance of initial success, but with catastrophic long-term consequences. Even if we could defeat the human confederation, the cost would be approximately 40% of our total military capacity, and we would face ongoing rebellions across the empire. Strategic withdrawal would mean abandoning our outer territories and consolidating around our core worlds. This would preserve our military strength, but would also mean losing access to the resources that support our economy. Economic projections suggest a 50-year period of decline followed by potential collapse. And the human proposal? Corthalin S. Scarred Karapachi reflected the chamber's lights as he considered his words. Acceptance would mean abandoning our current power structure, but could result in long-term stability and even prosperity. The humans have demonstrated that voluntary cooperation can achieve results that exceed those of conquest-based systems. But it would also mean admitting that 800 years of hegemony policy has been wrong. Cultural Councillor Svera pointed out, how do we explain to our people that everything they've believed about our superiority was false? Perhaps, Scientific Councillor Lirandel suggested, we don't tell them it was wrong. Perhaps we tell them it was incomplete. The chamber fell silent as the councillors considered this perspective. Explain. Thalrek commanded. The hegemony has always prided itself on being the most advanced civilization in the galaxy. But what if our definition of advanced was too narrow? What if true advancement isn't about the ability to conquer, but about the ability to inspire cooperation? Lirandel's tentacles gestured to the holographic display. Look at what the humans have accomplished in 50 years through cooperation. Look at the innovations that have emerged from their collaborative approach. Their ships are more advanced than ours not because they're inherently superior, but because they've learned from dozens of different species. You're suggesting that we redefine success. Economic Councillor Velthurin said slowly, I'm suggesting that we evolve. Lirandel replied. Evolution isn't about abandoning what works. It's about adapting to changing circumstances. The galaxy has changed. The balance of power has shifted. We can either adapt to these new realities or be swept away by them. Sir, Communications Councillor Rawless interrupted. We're receiving another transmission from Admiral Chen. She's requesting an immediate response to their proposal. Put her through. Thalrek commanded. The chamber's main display showed the interior of the human ship, where Admiral Chen sat surrounded by her staff. But now the display also showed representatives from other species, a Korthic engineer, a Zenthri scientist, a Velinari diplomat, and others whose presence spoke of the growing confederation. Supreme Commander, Chen began, I'm afraid that time is running out. The galaxy is changing rapidly, and we need to know whether the hegemony will be part of that change or will be left behind by it. Admiral, Thalrek replied, the Hegemony Council is still considering your proposal. We need more time to, with respect, Supreme Commander, we don't have more time. The Korthic Resistance has just liberated their homeworld, the Zenthri. Independence movement has been recognized by 17 other species. The Velinari Freedom Fleet is approaching Hegemony core territories. The change is happening with or without your participation. The display shifted to show real-time tactical information from across the galaxy. Dozens of systems were reporting uprisings, declarations of independence, and requests for Confederation membership. The carefully maintained order of the hegemony was crumbling in real time. However, Chen continued, if you're willing to accept our proposal, we can help manage this transition in a way that minimizes chaos and maximizes stability. We can help you maintain the economic and cultural benefits of your civilization while adapting to the new galactic order. And if we refuse, Thalrek asked, then you'll face the consequences of 300 years of suppressed innovation and justified rebellion, Chen replied. The choice is yours, Supreme Commander. But it needs to be made now. Thalrek looked around the chamber at the faces of his fellow counselors. He saw fear, uncertainty, and the dawning realization that the galaxy they had known was ending. Council, he said quietly, I call for a vote. All in favor of accepting the Human Confederation proposal. The silence stretched for long moments. Then, slowly, tentacles, crystalline appendages, and various other forms of limbs began to rise. Scientific Counselor Lyrandel voted first. The evidence supports evolution over extinction. Military Counselor Corthalin followed. Strategic retreat is sometimes the path to victory. Economic Counselor Velthurin was third. Adaptation is preferable to collapse. One by one, the counselors cast their votes. When the count was complete, 10 of the 12 had voted in favor of accepting the proposal. The motion carries, Thalrek announced, Admiral Chen. The hegemony accepts your proposal for Galactic Confederation. The relief on Chen's face was visible even across the vast distance. Thank you, Supreme Commander. I believe this is the beginning of something remarkable. Perhaps, Thalrek replied, but I have one condition. Name it. I want to visit one of your ships. I want to see for myself what you've built. I want to understand how cooperation can achieve what conquest could not. Chen smiled. Supreme Commander, you and your entire council are welcome aboard the Defiance. I think you'll find it illuminating. As the transmission ended, the chamber fell quiet. The councilors sat in contemplative silence, each processing the magnitude of what had just occurred. We just voted to end the hegemony. Cultural Councilor Svera said quietly. No, Thalrek replied, standing and looking out at the stars through the chamber's great viewport. We just voted to transform it. Outside, the galaxy continued its eternal dance. But now it danced to a different rhythm. The age of conquest was ending. The age of cooperation was beginning. And in the silence between the old world and the new, the sound of everything changing grew into a symphony that would echo across the stars for generations to come. ## Epilogue. The new harmony * 5 years. Later * the Galactic Confederation Assembly Hall was a marvel of cooperative engineering. Built not by a single species, but by 27 different civilizations working together. The architecture blended elements from across the galaxy, the flowing curves of Zenthri design, the mathematical precision of Korthic construction, the organic integration of Velinari biotechnology, and the robust functionality of human engineering. Admiral Sarah Chen, now bearing the title of Confederation Defense Coordinator, stood at the observation deck watching the delegates arrive for the 5th annual assembly. Ships from dozens of species filled the orbital space around the station, their diverse designs creating a visual symphony of galactic cooperation. Remarkable, isn't it? Chen turned to find Supreme Commander Thalrek now calling himself Coordinator. Thalrek approaching with his familiar 6-armed stride. In the 5 years since the hegemony's transformation, he had become one of the Confederation's most effective administrators, using his centuries of experience to help manage the complex logistics of galactic cooperation. I still can't quite believe it worked, Chen admitted. There were so many variables, so many ways it could have gone wrong. The key was understanding that change was inevitable. Thalrek replied, joining her at the viewport. We could either guide it or be destroyed. By it, the hegemony chose to guide it. Below them, the assembly hall was filling with delegates from 47 species, the same number that had once been conquered by the hegemony. But now they were here as equals, as partners in the greatest experiment in galactic governance that had ever been attempted. Status report, Chen asked. The Korthik delegation is presenting their new space-time manipulation technology. The Zenthari are sharing their advances in clean energy production. The Velinari have developed medical techniques that could extend lifespans across 17 different species. Thalrek's mandibles clicked in what had become his version of a smile. The humans were right. Cooperation does achieve more than conquest, not just the humans. Chen corrected everyone. Every species that chose to share their knowledge instead of hoarding it. Every civilization that decided to build bridges instead of walls. They watched as a human ship docked alongside a former hegemony vessel. Both crews working together to unload supplies for the assembly. The sight that would have been impossible 5 years ago was now routine. The Titan-class ships. Thalrek said, "Are they still necessary?" Chen considered the question. The massive warships still patrolled the galaxy's borders, still stood, ready to defend the Confederation against external threats. But their role had evolved from instruments of deterrence to symbols of cooperative strength. "For now," she replied, "the galaxy is still a dangerous place. There are species beyond our borders who might see our cooperation as weakness, but increasingly, they're serving as exploration vessels, research platforms, and diplomatic ships. And the resistance movements, most have been integrated into the Confederation government. The Korthik resistance leaders are now serving as the democratically elected representatives of their species. The Zenthari independence movement has become the Zenthari Cultural Preservation Society. The Velinari Freedom Fleet has been incorporated into the Confederation Defense Force. And those who couldn't be integrated." Chen's expression grew serious. "There are still holdouts, former hegemony hardliners who refuse to accept the new order. Some resistance groups that don't trust any form of centralized authority. But they're becoming fewer each year. Time heals many wounds," Thalrek observed. "Time and prosperity," Chen agreed. "When species can see the tangible benefits of cooperation, when they can participate in decisions that affect them, when they can maintain their cultural identity while contributing to something larger than themselves, most are willing to give it a chance." A chime sounded, indicating that the assembly was about to begin. Chen and Thalrek made their way to the main hall, where delegates from across the galaxy were taking their seats. The sight never failed to amaze Chen. Beings of every conceivable shape and size, representing civilizations that had once been enemies, now working together to build a better future. The assembly president, a Zenthari philosopher named Kethvaran, called the session to order. "Delegates, we gather today to celebrate 5 years of galactic cooperation and to plan for the challenges ahead. Our first speaker is Admiral Chen, who will present the Defense Coordination Report." Chen took the podium, looking out at the assembled delegates. 5 years ago, she had been preparing for war. Now she was helping to build peace. "Delegates, friends," she began, 5 years ago, the galaxy stood at a crossroads. We could have chosen the path of conflict, of conquest, of domination. Instead, we chose cooperation. We chose to build something new. She activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy, not as a collection of territories, but as a network of connections, trade routes, communication lines, joint research projects, and cultural exchanges created a web of interdependence that made war not just unlikely, but economically and culturally impossible. The results speak for themselves. Scientific advancement has accelerated beyond our wildest projections. Economic prosperity has spread to every member species. Cultural exchange has enriched all of our civilizations, and most importantly, we have achieved something that no single species could have accomplished alone. We have begun to understand our place in the universe. The display shifted to show the Confederation's latest project, a massive exploration initiative that would send joint crews to the galaxy's unexplored regions, seeking new forms of life and new opportunities for cooperation. But our greatest achievement, Chen continued, is not technological or economic. It is the simple fact that we are here, together, as equals. We have proven that different species can work together not just to survive, but to thrive. We have shown that diversity is not a weakness to be overcome, but a strength to be celebrated. The assembly erupted in applause, or the various species equivalents of applause. As the sound died down, Chen continued. 5 years ago, I told Supreme Commander Thalrek that the age of conquest was ending. I was right, but I was wrong about what would replace it. I thought we were entering an age of cooperation. What we've actually entered is an age of transformation. She gestured to the assembly around her. Every species here has been changed by our interaction with others. Humans have learned patience from the Zenthari, precision from the Korthik, wisdom from the Velinari. The former hegemony species have learned that strength comes not from domination, but from inspiration, and together, we have all learned that. The universe is far more interesting when we explore it together. As Chen returned to her seat, she caught Thalrek's eye. The former Supreme Commander nodded slightly. A gesture of acknowledgement and respect. The assembly continued for 3 more days, with delegates presenting reports on everything from joint military exercises to cooperative art projects. But the real work of the Confederation happened in the spaces between the formal sessions. In the corridors where former enemies shared meals. In the observation decks where different species contemplated the stars together. In the quiet moments, when individuals realized that they were part of something larger than themselves. On the final day, as the delegates prepared to return to their homeworlds, Chen found herself once again on the observation deck. But this time, she was not alone. Representatives from dozens of species had gathered to watch the departure ceremonies, their various forms of communication creating a multilingual symphony of farewell. Admiral Chen. A voice called out. She turned to see a young Korthik engineer approaching, his crystalline carapace reflecting the starlight. I wanted to thank you. Thank me? For what? For giving my people the chance to be who we really are, under the hegemony. We were miners and laborers in the Confederation. We're engineers and scientists and artists. You showed us that we could be more than what others expected us to be. Chen smiled. You showed yourselves. We just provided the opportunity. As the young engineer walked away, Chen felt a sense of satisfaction that went beyond military victory or political success. They had accomplished something unprecedented. In galactic history, they had created a system where every species could reach its full potential, while contributing to the greater good. Reflecting on our achievements, Thalrek asked, joining her at the viewport. Reflecting on our possibilities, Chen replied, 5 years ago, we were preparing for war. Today, we're preparing for the future. And what does that future hold? Chen looked out at the stars, where Confederation ships were already heading toward the galaxy's unexplored regions. More species to meet, more knowledge to share, more opportunities to prove that cooperation is stronger than conquest, and more challenges to overcome, Thalrek added. Of course, but now we face them together. As the last ships departed and the assembly hall grew quiet, Chen remained at the viewport, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the Confederation's borders, other species were taking their first steps into space. Other civilizations were reaching for the stars. Other stories were beginning, and when they encountered the Galactic Confederation, they would find not conquerors or threats, but partners in the greatest adventure of all, the quest to understand the universe and humanity's place within it. The sound of everything changing had become the symphony of everything growing, and in that symphony, every species had a part to play. The silence between the stars had ended. The age of harmony had begun. And in the vast expanse of space, where countless worlds spun their ancient dance around distant suns, the future was being written not in the language of conquest, but in the universal language of hope.